Hello and welcome back to Typical City, the merry-go-round of will Man City be relegated, how much should they be punished is continuing to turn and turn and turn. Getting a bit frustrating, but really that's all there is to talk about right now. Nothing to talk about with Everton, apparently. No one wants to talk about Everton, and very few want to actually talk about Chelsea either, which is odd, really. Everyone wants to talk about little old City because no one gives a shit about City, apparently. No one cares about City unless there is an opportunity to see them relegated and punished by the most severe punishments available to the Premier League and the FA. Whatever you want to label at Manchester City right now, is the maximum punishment is required. That is the message. And I mean, what's odd is the innocent until proven guilty is just absolutely abolished right now. We're living in a cuckoo world, and the public court, the social justice warriors and the football, the good of the game warriors are out in force on YouTube. I've even heard other YouTubers say things like, even if Man City get found innocent, I see them as guilty. I see them as guilty anyway. So what's the point? You can't converse with these people. So having a rational conversation with that person and people like that is utterly pointless, an utter waste of time and a waste of breath, because these people have already made their minds up because of the nonsense that they've read. And they refuse to do their own due diligence, refuse to do their own homework and investigate what is actually going on here. Why have City been charged? This is a fishing expedition. This is exactly what this is. The Premier League have received information that is dubious, and hopeful suspicions is what the Premier League charges are completely hanging on. Everything depends on the hacking of the emails from Rui Pinto. Those of you who don't know, I did a previous video on this discussion already about Rui Pinto, who's currently serving a sentence right now. And he had to face numerous charges for hacking databases, of which he released into the public about 4 or 5 emails. Out of the 5.5 million emails that he downloaded from Manchester City's database, he found 4 or 5, of which they are screenshots. You can't see the header or footer. I'll just pop them on my screen again, just to give you a quick glance of what we're going up against as City, as a club. What really is the issue right now is these emails are what the Premier League saw, believed to be at least worth asking the question to Manchester City. What are these emails? Okay, and we go, I don't know. What's your point? They don't have to answer those questions, Manchester City. People are talking about City are failing to cooperate. Well, if City are innocent, why don't they cooperate? Because we've handed in our books. We've handed in our accounting books already. That's all we're obligated to do. And until you charge us, we're not obligated to cooperate by any other means. We don't have to talk to the Premier League about some bollocks emails from one individual that's currently serving his sentence right now. You know, the guy who hacked Manchester City's database, Rui Pinto, is serving his sentence as a result of his actions, okay? And people are calling him the hero in this situation, when, to be honest, it's incredibly dubious. I've already proven to you in my previous video that these emails are clearly shoddy work and potentially doctored or fabricated. I already slotted in a little sentence in there of my own in the previous video to prove to you how easy it is that this can be done. That anyone can type up an email, and how far can the Premier League punish Manchester City as well? Because there will be a monstrous appeal process. Right now, what Everton's appeal process is reducing the punishment, because they were the ones who said, sorry, we did it. They held up their hands, admitted guilt, and they've now been found guilty. What the Premier League are now trying to do, and what Everton will now try to do, is to try to appeal this situation and see that punishment reduced. And that's the best scenario that they can hope for, is seeing is it reduced. Whereas City's is, we're protesting our guilt. We're protesting innocence, sorry. We're trying to prove that we are innocent. And therefore, we have a different type of appeal process to go through. Will they be able to enforce punishments as soon as the Premier League decides? Because the UEFA did that, they have to go forward with it. They have to project their punishment and say at that point, because if they relegate Manchester City at the end of this season, let's say hypothetically in summer of 2024, the Premier League say, yeah, we found them guilty. We didn't like what we saw. We were given these dodgy emails by Rui Pinto. We're going to go off them and let's punish City. They're relegated. Let's relegate them. And then City say, no, right, well, we're going to appeal that. How long will that appeal process go? Because if it takes too long and goes into the following season, City are playing their football in the Championship, and then all of a sudden we go to the Court of Law in the UK, and go through the courts of laws till eventually we end up in the European courts, until the grand courts, the highest order of courts we could eventually take this to. Throughout all that process, City are playing football in lower leagues. And then what if the appeal is processed and City are found innocent? And we've just spent a year in the Championship. What are they going to do? How are they going to rectify that? How are they going to fix the fact that they punished us for something we shouldn't have been punished for? How are they going to fix that? What, give us 30 points next season to start on plus 30? Or just promote us back in and cherry pick a team and relegate them? They've made a fucking mess, the Premier League. They have made an absolute mess. And what all they've done here is, with the giddy nature of the Premier League and the trigger-happy, unorganised, poor outfit that the Premier League actually is, it's an absolute... I have every confidence in their incompetence, really, when it comes to the Premier League. And basically what they've done is they've hopped on a tiger and loved it. They've riding this tiger wild, like swinging their T-shirts around, riding this tiger, and then it's all of a sudden having a fun on here, calling Manchester City cheats and getting them punished. This is great, great. Now, how do I get off this tiger? How do I get off this tiger? Because that tiger's called Manchester City, and when you get off, it's going to fucking bite you, and it's going to bite you hard. It's going to come back at you with everything it's got. Do you understand? That's what's going to happen. And how is this going to happen? Because right now we're looking at Manchester City and the Premier League as two people who are sat there with fingers on the buttons. Two nuclear warheads are about to be launched, and we're going to have a game of chicken because the Premier League have already pressed their little button and fired a few bullets with regards to the charge. Now City are waiting and say, okay, you've opened up a can of worms, let's go. Let's go and expose you, Premier League, and your loopholes and laws that are an absolute joke to begin with. And now you want to talk about the laws that are being included, and eventually we could end up with them both pressing the buttons, and it's mutually assured destruction. And that's the end of everything, and the Premier League will obliterate itself. Manchester City, when all the Premier League will have to reinvent itself, and it will be to the detriment of English football. And the rest of the world and the rest of the footballing leagues will prosper as a result of the chaos that's now happened at the Premier League, at the Premier League's fault for coming up with these financial fair play laws to begin with that are as bent as you can possibly imagine, and then moving forward in creating these loopholes that were there for City to use. They were there for City to use. You come up with the rules. If you want to make the rules, you've got to be as ironclad as possible. You've got to make sure these rules can't be exposed or have loopholes in them. You can't do that. And they didn't do that. They failed miserably. City said, oh, well, City will have received that first rendition, the first revision of these laws, these financial fair play laws, and laughed at them and gone, what a joke. I mean, we can get people from other companies to invest and use people in pre-existing business relationships. Because there wasn't rules at the time to say we couldn't, doesn't mean we're now cheats because they've changed the rules. We're not cheats. We didn't cheat at the time. If we did it now, it would be cheating. But we aren't doing it now. We're a profitable business. We're a profitable football club. And you can't now call us cheats retrospectively for rules that never existed. We just found the loopholes. That's not our fault. It's not our fault that the Premier League weren't sharp enough. They're fucking thick. That's the problem. And then you want to try and go and take this to the Premier League panel. This Premier League panel that we're talking about is not the law. The law will get involved eventually. And when the law gets involved, there is the British contract law. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but you and I, we can both go on the internet and find this information. If you want to point the finger at Manchester City, do it with facts. Don't do it with speculation and conjecture. Don't do it with that. Do it with facts. Come to me with facts. Because I've got some facts for you. The contract laws of the UK are very, very ironclad, and it's very, very simple because there is a difference between a contract and a deed. And now the statute of limitations for a deed, by the way, is not what City have signed up to. A deed is something for transfers of goods like real estate or land or wills and things like that, saying that something must be paid for this. And that's what a deed is. What City have signed up to is a contract with the Premier League. And under contract laws under the UK, I'll read them to you now. The contract laws as the UK are as follows. So basically, the law in England and Wales specifies that anyone bringing a breach of contract claim has 6 years from the date of the breach in which to do so. With regards to a deed, you're given 12 years. This is not a deed. This is a contract with regards to Manchester City in the Premier League. And they've been given 6 years to do that. So 6 years from now, from the point of, from today's date rather, is what, going back to 2017? Eventually, by the time this enters the court, they'll be out of date. These charges will be out of date, and this will immediately be thrown in the bin. So by that law alone, Just that fact that contract laws have a statute of limitation that can only go back 6 years, as soon as that happens, even if we were the most guiltiest club in the world, which I have every belief that we're not, and this is just City just playing the game that the Premier League have set up. They laid the board out, we played the game. They didn't make the rules clear enough. And this is all comes down to FFP. Now, what really is FFP? Like, people are really going on. I mean, first of all, the rules are evolving, and I'll get onto that shortly. But right now, FFP was supposed to be protecting the clubs from spending themselves into non-existence. That's what the intention was, really. When the rule of FFP, you have to question the timing of it. The conversation around FFP only came into play in 2009. And when did City get bought? Oh yeah, 2008. Quite convenient. When did Chelsea get bought? It was around the start of 2000, wasn't it? Abramovich. But the money that Abramovich was bringing in was a competitive amount of money. That's what it was deemed as. And that's why they didn't have a problem with Chelsea spending what they were doing, because United were able to spend close, not as much as Abramovich, but close. It became a competitive environment even more so by adding Chelsea. It was like, okay, I'm not a big fan of this, but Chelsea coming in, we can't really argue about it. Sheikh Mansour comes knocking on the door, and he makes... Abramovich wasn't even 1% worth of the value of Sheikh Mansour. He blew him out of the water. It was astronomical differences in wealth between the two individuals. And what Sheikh Mansour has at his disposal just blew Abramovich out of the water. Premier League ears pricked up. We need to do something about this. We can't allow one club to outspend another club and have more money, especially a club that's come out of nowhere like Manchester City, you know. Then the rules come into place. So you talk about protecting other clubs. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. It's to keep the top at the top. There are plenty of other ways and other revisions that are due, that will happen to financial fair play, that would allow other clubs to spend what they earn, because this rule doesn't exist in any other walks of life, in any other business industry. These particular set of rules do not exist in other industries of business. And people then immediately go, well, there are competitive laws allowing of certain things and making sure the competition stays fair in certain business industries. Well, do your homework then. What are those competitive laws? I'll give them to you right now. And bear in mind, I am not a lawyer. But this information is freely available for everybody. Free. Go and get it yourself. The people in the know, all these YouTubers out there that are pointing the finger at Manchester City and saying they have the facts, when they don't provide any, their thumbnail and their headline states that they have the facts, because the facts don't suit their agenda right now. And these are the individuals that are saying that, I feel sorry for Everton fans. I feel sorry for Everton fans and a little bit for Chelsea. They don't feel sorry for City fans. They do not ever mention City fans, and they deserve sympathy. And why is that? It's because Everton are shit. That's why. Because they're shit. And they're going to be even more shit with minus 10 points. That's why. Because they're taking pot shots at the top of the table, because nobody wants to see Man City at the top of the table and winning 5 out of 6 Premier Leagues potentially, and winning trebles and winning trophies year in, year out. Nobody wants to see that. They want to see other teams, and the fact that Everton, little old Everton, have been punished from a bottom half of the Premier League team have become a relegation battling team like they were last season. It was poor mismanagement. Everton are getting what they deserve. They held their hands up and said sorry. Now, going back to financial fair play and how these laws are completely nonsensical, and how the Premier League is not a legal governing body. They are not a legal governing body. They have no jurisdiction in terms of law. What they are trying to apply is within the jurisdiction and the confinements of football. And football, the law is bigger than football. I don't care what you say. The law supersedes football in every aspect. So what they are trying to apply, City have agreed to this and agreed to the FFP that what was in 2008, but there is an inevitability that financial fair play was always going to have to evolve, and we're seeing it year on, year out. They change the financial fair play rules every year. Every year they're changed, and the laws they're trying to enforce now are different to what they were when they were first introduced in 2010 and 11 season. When they were first introduced, they were a shambles, an absolute shambles. But quickly going back to the financial fair play law, and how what you earn, You can't spend more than what you earn. That's the most basic term, the basic terminology to explain FFP as it was when it was first introduced. And then obviously City fans like myself would say, well, there is no other walks of life and no other business practice that has those terms. And then obviously people have then come out and said, well, hang on a minute, there are competitive laws. Those competitive laws are as follows. The Competition Act of 1998 prohibits anti-competitive agreements between businesses. In particular, you must not agree to fix prices or terms of trade, for example, agreeing price rises with your competitors. You must not agree to limit your production to reduce competition. You must not carve up markets or customers, for example, agreeing with a competitor that you will bid for one contract and they will bid for another. You must not discriminate between customers, for example, charging different prices or imposing different terms where there is no difference in the circumstances of supply. So has anyone seen anything to do with revenue in there? Has anybody seen a law? Because this is straight off the government, of the English government's website. This is the business laws, the Competitive Act of 1998. These are the laws, okay? Not a single law in there says you can't spend any more than you earn. Nothing says those words. And the reason why you can't spend what you earn in football is because who earns the most? Liverpool, United, Arsenal in the Premier League, they earn the most. Real Madrid and Barcelona in Spain, Bayern Munich of Germany. It suits all them. And the G14 that is no longer in existence anymore, thank God for that. Those clubs that were part of the G14 were all orchestrating these rules and the financial fair play. They were behind it. They were the ones who wanted financial fair play because this system prevented owners or big money men, sugar daddies, looking across the oceans and seeing all these football clubs and a way to make money and way to make profit from buying a football club and investing lots of money in promoting that club, whether you want to call it sports washing or not. Either way, that will deter them. That will stop them going like, oh, that looks like a very easy place to go and make money, or an easy place to go and improve the image of my part of the world. If you're from the Middle East and they want to have a better perception from Western businesses to suggest that they look at them and their human rights and things like that in a different light. That's what they wanted to deter. They didn't want sugar daddies coming in. It was too late from a Manchester City perspective, and we've already done our business. We've already achieved our successes. This financial fair play was to prevent more people from doing it, and why the Newcastle deal was incredibly complex, and why Newcastle can't spend what everyone thought they were about to go and spend. Okay, that's why. So financial fair play, people saying it's about protection, absolute nonsense. You want to talk about protection? Why are United fans so arsey about being in £1 billion worth of debt then? Why are they so bothered by that? Is that protecting them? Does that really protect them? Because these financial fair play rules, if it was all about protection, surely that's what they would have done. It said, look, we can't have American companies coming in and loading a load of debt onto a football club. But there wasn't a single rule in financial fair play about that. Not a single rule, because that didn't suit the Glazers, who were part of the G14 and were part of the idea behind financial fair play in the first place, which was to prevent competition. You talk about competition. This is to prevent competition. This is the cartel. People don't like that term, cartel. That's exactly what it is. It's to keep the minions as the minions, the peasants as the peasants, and keep the prosperous at the top, already at the top. And City came along and they didn't like the idea of a new big fat pig coming and stuffing its face from the trough that the Premier League have already been stuffing its face from. They didn't like that. And then you've got the whole idea that these rules are evolving, financial fair play. And now the Premier League are trying to enforce rules that weren't there. They never existed, these rules, because as of the October the 18th in 2022, the rules were changed with regards to sponsorships, and a meeting was held with all 20 Premier League clubs, of which 18 of the Premier League clubs voted for the idea of no circumvented revenue coming in from sponsorships, either pre-existing business relationships. So, for example, Manchester City have got multiple Abu Dhabi companies that are owned by friends of Sheikh Mansour or relatives of Sheikh Mansour or Khaldoon Mubarak, who own these companies, and they didn't like the idea that they were able to insert money from those companies into Manchester City when there was no rule to begin with, up until 2022. Last year, that rule was introduced. And the majority of these charges, a lot of these accusations rather, are to do with Manchester City's revenue and how Manchester City are able to generate such revenue and where the revenues come from. And then you get dangerously into the topic of opinions and what the worth of that revenue actually is. How much worth is it for a company to sponsor Manchester City? And how much more money would they get if they sponsored Man United, or would they sponsor, let's say, Stockport County, for example? Obviously, Stockport County would give absolutely no exposure to these companies, whereas the top Premier League companies, that's why they get all the big sponsors, because they give them exposure, because everybody tunes in to watch Premier League teams. Then you're getting into a debate. If City are receiving £200 or £300 million more for their sponsorship deal, for the exact same equivalent sponsorship deal that Man United are getting, yes, that's unrealistic. City wouldn't receive that much more than Man United would receive in sponsorship. But what we're receiving is like this much more and that much more. We're talking about the most minute amount of differences between sponsorship deals. And yet here they are pointing the finger and saying, you can't earn that amount of money. Why not? We're successful on the pitch. We win football matches, we win trebles, we win Champions Leagues, we win Premier Leagues more often than not. That's why we're a success. That success breeds attention, and with that attention comes sponsorships, and with that sponsorships comes revenue, and with that revenue comes more success. It's a very enjoyable cycle, and the Premier League tried to nullify it. All they've done is allow City to continue, but City are part of it now. We're part of the success story of the Premier League. That's what we are. What that's done now is going forward, no other clubs can do it. And eventually this will get addressed. And you go back to the FFP and applying these change of rules, and the rules that were introduced by the 18 of the 20 Premier League clubs, the other two clubs were Manchester City and Newcastle. Surprise, surprise. Those were the two that didn't want these pre-existing business relationship sponsorships to be at least put under review. Every single sponsorship deal that's worth more than £1 million now has to be reviewed by, guess who? The Premier League, the big old Premier League, the governing body that's the be-all and end-all of decisions with regards to football in the UK. And embarrassing how bent and how corrupt that is as a fact on its own is one thing. But then you add the fact that they're now trying to enforce these rules that started and were introduced in October of 2022 and trying to apply them to 2009, 2010. You're retrospectively going back to try and punish Manchester City. It's like me and my lad playing Snakes and Ladders. We had 5 games of Snakes and Ladders. I was 5-0 up, won 5 games in a row, incredible. But then he decides to change the rule that snakes mean going up the board and ladders mean going down. And all the other games mean nothing because he's now changed the rules. That's effectively what he's done. And that's not right, is it? That's not right. I won 5-0, it's still 5-0. You can't wipe the slate clean and start again and change the rules and then try and retrospectively apply those rules going backwards. It makes absolutely no sense. And if you do want to start applying these laws going backwards, there is law in the UK. And that's where this inevitably is going to end up, because the Premier League, as of right now, are not, as of right now, as if they ever will be, a governing legal body. They will never be a legal body. They have absolutely no chance, the Premier League. They have absolutely no chance. I think they're going to get obliterated. I really do. I'm so excited to see where this can go. And that everything I've just said, by the way, nullifies the time barred situation in terms of what City were accused of being time barred for and how they got away with it on a technicality with regards to CAS. That's exactly what I say. The loopholes, again, they didn't get away with anything. They played the game. They've played the game and they're winning. They're winning. We're going to continue to win. And right now we have to face it, City fans. We're going to have to face it once again that Manchester City are cheats and blah, 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 blah. They won't like this information, rival fans. They don't want to hear it. They'll probably, I doubt very few of them have made it this far into the video because it doesn't suit their agenda. And that's not what I'm about, Blues. So if you are a City fan, give us a pat on the back, because I'm trying to fight our corner, in our corner, because there aren't many of us out there doing it, sadly. There aren't many City fans out there fighting the corner for this cause right now. And it's a bit upsetting that City fans just seem to be, a lot of City fans in the public that have the power to speak. And I mean, I'm not the biggest channel yet. I've only just started this channel really properly in the summer. So back me, support me, drop a like, subscribe. It helps. Get the word out there that these people are fucking idiots that we're listening to, and we have to listen to them. And if you like what I've said, like and subscribe, because it helps these words be heard by a bigger audience. So it really does help. Blues, drop a like and subscribe. Get your comments in as well. What are your thoughts going forward? That's what I really want to hear. And rival fans as well, what do you make of this information? I'm sure you've seen it as complete nonsense. Yeah, take of it what you will, because as we already know that a poll was done by the MEN this year, in fact, that contained 1,000 football fans, of which 3 in 4 football fans already assumed Manchester City are guilty. So what is the point? What's the point in having a conversation with people who've already made their mind up? There isn't one. There isn't one. But we have to take it on the chin. And right now we can just give it one of them. Enjoy our treble. See you later. And drop a like and subscribe. Typical City is the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City.